What's up, y'all? Dev Demolino here again for Obligatory, bringing you the music news of May 12th, 2023, and the week thereof, of course. And today we start with some interesting news concerning Kanye West and Yeezy and Adidas. That basically Adidas is going to sell the remaining Yeezy merchandise that they have. Now, this was a story that was brewing and percolating as to will they or won't they destroy potentially or donate the $1 billion of merchandise since they split with Kanye for reasons that we know and were all present for at the time. Essentially, an unspecified portion of proceeds is expected to be donated to, quote, those hurt by Ye's remarks. You or I or many other normal people would think, hey, you could take these shoes and just give them away. You could donate them to people on the streets here in the United States. You could have people in Cambodia and Kenya wearing Yeezys and you would have done a cool thing. That is not what they're going to do. They're going to do the businessy version of that, which is sell them to us. I think they want us to buy the shoes, and not all of it goes to charity or all of it once we pay people back or we break even, or that's not the verbiage that they used, but they will be donating something to charity. Next up, I have another somewhat disheartening story. I don't really like this one, but Louisiana lawmakers pro ticket scalping, pro bots. I mean, that's what it looks like, and that is definitely what The Cure's Robert Smith is thinking, as he put out some tweets that have been getting some news traction as of late. The Louisiana legislature, HB 341, is considering a resellers-backed bill to ban fan-to-fan exchanges. The bill has already passed the House and is up for consideration in the state Senate. Louisiana lawmakers, please don't pass this bill. Empower the artists, not the scalpers and the bots. Robert Smith obviously is not a Twitter Blue subscriber. He clearly is not paying the $8.99 a month for long tweets. He's got two tweets here separated by a ... But he's right. The bill, sponsored by Baton Rouge Republican Paula Davis, would ban fan-to-fan ticket exchanges and instead force fans to sell back their ticket to the original ticket issuer. So basically, if you bought your Paula Abdul ticket in Tampa, Florida from Ticketmaster, you can't just give it to your best friend Betsy. You literally have to sell it back to Ticketmaster. You can't just give it away or sell it on Craigslist, which is just, that does not sound right or real at all. But you know, this is a bill that's going through our House and now our Senate. Even if it doesn't get passed, it's just wild to imagine that this is something that anybody wants. This seems like universally not that cool for fans. I don't really get it, but we'll see more as we go on. Next up, in much more cool and heartwarming and gratifying news, the American Football House has been sold, and it was bought by Polyvinyl Records and American Football, the band. American Football is a quartet rock group that pioneered the Midwest emo subscene for decades after the release of their 1999 self-titled debut album. Now, this band was a bit short-lived in their initial iteration, only being around from 97 to 2000 and the release of this lone record. Now, some 24 years and a couple reunion records later, the band still stands as a symbol to this outsider genre with a cult following. And the house that the picture was taken for, the cover art of the album, was a popular spot for parties and punk shows around the University of Illinois. The photo was taken by Chris Strong, and he, along with American Football, Polyvinyl Records, and others, all pitched in to purchase the property when it went up for sale just recently. All right, next up, we do have a little bit more sad news for y'all and more layoffs happening in the music journalism industry. MTV News is an exclamation point of casualties in Paramount's efforts to downsize. They are literally downsizing their team domestically by 25%. And MTV News, which has been, you know, in recent years not as popular, but a long-standing and pretty iconic source of music news and updates. Now, the news surrounding layoffs has been ubiquitous in the media and tech industries because MTV News shutting down comes after news that BuzzFeed and Vice News would also shutter their longtime news divisions. Again, the media industry and the world as a whole has been ubiquitously faced with these looming waves of downsizing efforts, from ESPN Disney to tech companies like Meta and Google, Spotify, Twitter, to Sirius XM, NPR, Vox Media. It really has just been a difficult thing to get away from in that space. And as a music listener, it's been hard to ignore. And I really just can't help but wonder what kind of doors are going to open for folks that they will in turn help open for others down the road. Next up, everyone's kind of wondering right now, is The Weeknd considering killing The Weeknd? In an interview with W Magazine, he did about a TV show that he's going to be in. He's going to be in an HBO drama called The Idol. And he's the idol. He is a cult leader. He's probably a sociopath and an egomaniac, but he's a music industry self-help guru, and opposite of him is Lily Rose Depp. Yes, that Depp. She seems like she's gonna do whatever it takes to be a pop star. Now, I'm pretty interested in this show, and the supporting cast is interesting as well. It's got more musicians in it, like Moses Sumney, Troye Sivan, Mike Dean shows up as well. And yeah, the interview is mainly about that character and about that experience in that show. But he did throw in a little quote at the end of the interview about his upcoming music that he's working on. Well, if you've been following the breadcrumbs of The Weeknd's upcoming album, you'd know at least that it's in a trilogy with these last two, After Hours and Dawn FM. These pretty theatric and thematic experiences that were also really great albums that I loved a lot, by the way, and have listened to a ton. And I have not been the biggest Weeknd fan of all time, I'll tell you that. Well, it seems like he wants to, at the very least, cap off this third album with a theme that maybe kind of kills the persona of The Weeknd. Now, is he being more literal and saying that he's gonna not make music as The Weeknd anymore? He's gonna be Abel or some other name? He's almost said that without saying it really, and I think there's still some possibility left that that's not exactly what he's saying here. But I can't help but wonder what this new album exactly is going to sound like. But I think the space that he's been in with the last two has been incredible, and I look forward to hearing what he decides to do to finish the trilogy. All right, I said I was done with the sad news, and this might be sad depending on who you are, but rip Sum 41. The band is calling it quits after 27 years making music and touring together. They are currently on tour and plan to pretty much retire themselves when this is all done, especially with their international tour dates. Now again, depending on who you are, you might have been a really big fan of Sum 41 back in the early 2000s when they were making headway in that early 2000s pop punk space. They were just one of the more notable bands to be associated with that space and time and era in music. And even though most people were not really checking for new Sum 41 music, it is sad to see the end of an era, really. All right, so let's talk about some new music, because we did get some this week. Not a lot of exciting new music, to be honest, especially in the albums department, but in the singles, we did get some interesting stuff. Gene Dawson is releasing new music under a moniker called Phoenix. And today he's got two new songs out that have a post-punk revival-y sort of feel. One's called Youth Plus, the other's called Delusional World Champion. Killer Mike, who I mentioned recently in a video, came out with a new song, Motherless. It features Aaron Allen Kane. Arlo Parks hooked up with Phoebe Bridgers for her new single, Pegasus. Janelle Monáe's got a new song out, Lipstick Lover, along with an album announcement. Georgia Smith has a new single out called Little Things, and Queens of the Stone Age are back with a new single and an album announcement as well. And let's talk about some album announcements, because we got a handful right here that we know for sure are coming out either this month or next. We got Amine and Kaytranada coming out with Kaytramine on May 19th. And then the next week, we got Arlo Parks, My Soft Machine on May 26th. After that, we got McKinley Dixon, Beloved Paradise Jazz, June 2nd. Nowhere Forever, June 2nd. Janelle Monáe, The Age of Pleasure, June 9th. King Cruel's album Space Heavy comes out also June 9th. Killer Mike with his album Michael, 16th of June. Queens of the Stone Age and Times New Roman, June 16th again. Swans the Beggar, June 23rd. And Grian Chatten of Fontaines DC is dropping his solo debut album, Chaos for the Fly, on June 30th. So there's a bunch of records right there that even just in this month and next, I'm pretty excited about, not to mention what comes out that we haven't heard about just yet. But really quickly before we go, I want to share a few videos with y'all. Send them your way in case you want to watch them. They're funny or interesting or whatever. First off, Danny Brown goes fishing for the first time, actually. This YouTube series is called Fishing with David Lucas, and in it, David Lucas interviews people, usually other comedians. He's an actor and a comedian. He's actually currently on tour with Joe Rogan, and it's just as wholesome and calming and serene as fishing itself. And I think we get to see Danny in a really nice and casual lens through this interview, but he also catches a fish halfway through, which is cool. It's his first time fishing, first time catching a fish. So it's special. Also, Vice President Kamala Harris, crate digger? Possibly. All right. After new information we've seen, she went to visit the Black-owned Home Rule Records in Washington, D.C. She came out with some heat. I'm not going to lie. She comes out, cameras, reporters asking her, what'd you get? She's pulling out Charles Mingus. She's pulling out Roy Ayers. She's pulling out Porgy and Bess. Now, I personally would be really interested to see what kind of grails that she has in her collection and what kind of highbrow Discogs page that she may or may not have a Secret Service member running for her. But it just goes to show that even cops can have a good taste in music as well, maybe. Speaking of the police, MGK disses Jack Harlow, seemingly for a bar on Jack Harlow's recent album, Jackman, in which he says he's the hardest white boy since Eminem. And I think MGK may have taken exception to that, and he comes back with just a verse on Jay-Z Eminem's Renegade. And at first you listen to it and you're like, this is not bad for my expectations of MGK. He's kind of spitting here, but he does diss Jack by saying, yeah, they call you Jack Man because you Jack Man's whole swag. You sound like Drake. The diss was not dissing, in my opinion. But when you really break it down, when you really talk about the science of hip hop, these two may not even be better than John Cena. I don't know if y'all have heard John Cena's rap album, but I don't even know if these two are better than him. And that's going to be it for this week's news segment for Obligatory. Again, we do community album review surveys every single week. And this week we are asking you to send us scores and your favorite tracks and maybe even a review if you feel like it for albums like Chance the Rapper, Acid Rap, Black Country New Road, Live at Bush Hall, Larry June and the Alchemist, The Great Escape, and more. And thanks again for watching, and we'll be back again next week.